looking at it, and obviously based on where we are at the moment, that may well be the way to go. But of course, VDI brings its own challenges and its own questions. It's like, how do I put my applications out onto VDI? How do I get stuff from their old OS, so their profiles? Because users are quite often very touchy about the stuff that they have on their desktops and their pictures of their children and these sorts of things, or their own files on there. How do I get that over onto either a VDI or even just say a newer sort of Windows 10 environment? But also, one specific challenge, which I didn't mention earlier, is the reason a lot of people have got sort of laptops or their own desktops, because we've got a few developers and they need to install their own applications. So that's another challenge, and I'm not sure whether they'd still be able to do that inside a VDI environment. So can you help me on that side of it?
Yeah, no, certainly we can. So if we start to look at the next solution, which is our ProfileUnity, our user environment management solution, and we think of this as exactly that. It's not just profile management. It goes way beyond profile management. So one of the key important things just to point out, if we go to the next slide, is this whole profile thing. And one of the things that ProfileUnity does is it essentially centralizes your profiles into a standard infrastructure on a file share, not in any kind of unique format. And it kind of acts as a translator is probably the best way to describe it. And that once I've got that profile centralized via the portability within the solution, is I can actually roam between operating systems. And it doesn't matter if that operating system is on a virtual machine, as a hosted, or in the cloud. It really doesn't matter. And one thing to point out, and this is an interesting thing, there's actually a couple of things missing to add to this slide. Each time Microsoft releases a new version of Windows, they change the profile version. And when I said a couple of things are missing, actually there are now 4 versions of Windows 10. So that means actually you could be migrating from Windows 10 to Windows 10. That may sound like a completely crazy thing, but what they've done is they've changed where the profile is living. So in some versions it's lived as a set of registry keys, in some versions it's lived in a database, in other versions it's lived in both. And ProfileUnity has the ability to know which operating system you're moving to and from and deliver the profile in the correct way. So one thing you mentioned, Fred, is that you've got 5,000 users. I'm assuming you're not going to do that in one big bang approach, are you?
No.
And if you upgrade from one OS, typically maybe one of your branch offices is going to go to Windows 10 today, but another one's still going to be on Windows 7. Does that mean somebody from a Windows 10 environment goes to the other place and can't log on because they're now using Windows 7? Not at all, not with ProfileUnity involved. We can manage that whole profile management piece. So you also mentioned there about installing your own applications as well. Absolutely. So applications right management is a big part of what ProfileUnity can do as well, just to pick on that particular use case that you have there. So I can actually give particular users, in this case it's your development team, I can give them effectively local admin rights, because typically everyone gives everybody local admin rights to install. Yeah, maybe not a good idea. So that allows them, for certain applications that you choose, whether they can or cannot install something on that desktop. So you're now managing who does that. So in your case, it would just be the development guys there. And that's just one of the features. Absolutely. And when you start moving to things like non-persistent VDI, then I can just kind of deliver those things back in, particularly with the profiles. I can roam around. I can deliver my profile to any virtual desktop wherever you choose to log in, even if you get a clean machine, because you are non-persistent every time. So if we look at some of the other use cases on the next slide, I've just picked out probably kind of the top 10 based on some of the things we've been talking about. And as you can see, applications rights management is there, but it's the coexist between Windows operating systems. The other big thing, and I don't know, I don't want to throw spanners into your works, Fred, but Office 365. And how do I deal with that in a non-persistent environment with caching and indexing? Again, something that ProfileUnity can deal with using things like Profile Disk and what we call Profile Bridge, that I can actually cache and index your Outlook files on a virtual hard drive that just gets attached at the time of login. So I don't sit there for days and days while gigs and gigs of mailboxes get synchronized with the desktop, only for you to log out 5 minutes later and it's all gone again. I can actually speed up the login process and deliver that that type of solution. Obviously, I can lower costs. We've got roaming profiles, deliver context-aware desktop, so you get the right thing based on who you are, where you're logging in from, and what you're allowed to do effectively. So in your example, again, your developers can install their own apps. The guys in the marketing team cannot. But and then build on that as so, okay, if you're out of the office and you're coming in on a different network, you can't have access to this particular set of applications. Or I know you've just logged in from the office down the road, so there's no point me mapping drives and printers that are somewhere completely different. And it brings all of that into one central management console. Everything is done in one single management console.
So for me, does
that help your?
Yeah. I was just going to say. So for me, that looks like it just simplifies the management of my users. So their profiles. I'm glad you brought up the Office 365 because that is something that a lot of people here are thinking about. Yeah. I'd heard some rumours, should we say, that it was a little bit more difficult on VDI. But yeah, that could simplify stuff a lot, especially obviously with the cached modes and these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.